Just the Stats. Reggie Johnson, Eugene Morton, coming to you from the lovely city of Atlanta, Georgia. And Eugene, this has been an interesting subject, I should say, because we're going to talk about running backs and welcome to our YouTube channel and the show in general. If you're watching on TikTok, listening on Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, wherever you find your podcast, much appreciated for sharing some time with us here. We're going to discuss a little bit about the running back situation. And you know what's crazy about the running backs and pay and importance of this position is just how much it's changed in my lifetime to being minimized to a certain degree. And this is something that was similar to centers for a while until you got centers like Jokic and Embiid and stuff like that. But even a center like Jokic in basketball is a center that's playing that has some other characteristics. He has guard characteristics. He can shoot the perimeter shot. He can pass and stuff like that. So even that is something that's changed from what a traditional center is. And with the running backs, if you are for one, the Derrick Henry, Nick Chubb type running backs are almost like dinosaurs at this point.
Right. They're like dying.
You don't have a lot of guys who like that, who just run you over guys, Eugene, you know, that we've been kind of used to seeing in life. So recently we had the Saquon Barkley situation is kind of what brought this up, but this has been building. This isn't something that has just happened this year, but I think the Saquon Barkley, Dalvin Cook situations, and even with Jacobs with the Raiders, you know, trying to get paid. All these guys are being franchised, paid about roughly $10 million. It's interesting because with the Giants in particular, and Austin Ekeler, let me add him too, because he's going to really key into this episode. We're going to pull up some stats here soon. And you know, as a matter of fact, maybe we should go to that now. Let's go to some stats now. We'll go ahead and add it to the stream here. So, you know, what's interesting with the Giants situation in particular is Saquon Barkley, in my opinion, is their best player. Now, if you're looking here on our stream, and for people who aren't able to watch, I'll go ahead and explain some of these stats for you as I put them on the screen here. Daniel Jones, 8-11 career record without Saquon Barkley. Now, what's interesting about this is not just the record that Daniel Jones has, it's just a correlation between how different he looks in general with Saquon on the field and with Saquon not on the field. It's like almost a different person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So pivotal to your team he is, and yet you can't get this done. Now, some of the evidence I bring up in this episode is, and I would venture to say most of it, is going to be in support of the Giants to a certain degree, because there's just not going to be a lot of evidence that I'm going to present that's going to support paying a running back, because unfortunately it just doesn't lead to W's. It doesn't lead to long-term success, doesn't lead to Super Bowl wins. And we'll towards the end of here bring up some Super Bowl running backs.
Yep.
And some of those names you're not even going to know. I almost guarantee. You're not even going to know every person on that list. So getting back to the Saquon situation, what are your thoughts on where the Giants stand? I get not giving him like a 5-year deal. Okay, 4 or 5 year deal. All right. Could you giving him like a 3-year? Could you give him a 3-year, 2-year guarantee? Is that crazy? I feel like you could have given him like a 3-year 40. Let's just throw that out there. Let's throw a random number out there. A 3-year 40, 2-year guaranteed.
Okay.
Is that crazy? Like, I don't think he's making 10-9 now.
You're right.
I don't think that's something that's too wild. You know, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, he's already turned. I guess. What is he looking for? I know he's already turned down a 14-year. So a 14 guarantee. I think that was a 2 or 3 that guarantee would be. You're right though. The issue is, I know Daniel Jones is going to be the worst example, but he is an athletic quarterback, and so he could still stretch the field with his legs. And that's the problem now. You're seeing more and more guys come into the league that can stretch the field. You know, they're not going to get you maybe that 10, 15 yards, but if it's 4th and 1 and you've got Daniel Jones, you got a Jalen Hurts back there, those guys can get you the 1 yard that you need. And maybe that's where you come up against paying like a Saquon, but here's the thing with Saquon is he's also a good pass receiving running back. So I they were successful because of Saquon this year. They were a two-headed monster with Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley. So I'm with you. I mean, it's going to be hard to present the evidence, but unless this team isn't making a step forward without him this year, and
I agree.
yeah, that's my only argument with it, because Daniel Jones did have Saquon could bail him out so many times, either with his legs, be hanging the ball off of him, or just being on the flat and just catching it out there and creating. And that's the thing I think people are, I understand that, the running backs, but there's so many good ones out there that could catch it like Saquon can catch it and create and run. And I think the Falcons got lucky with Bijan, because Bijan, I think he can definitely be that for us. So, but again, in 4 years, when that, 5 years after probably, we pick up the option or whatever, are we going to pay him when he's 25? What's that look like? What's that market look like for him?
Well, speaking of which, let's go ahead and look at some of these stats, because interesting enough that you bring him up. When you look at the stats here on what running backs are getting paid in general for this upcoming season, Bijan is getting paid the most, 13.7 for Bijan this upcoming season, 12 for Christian McCaffrey, 11 for Alvin Kamara. Christian McCaffrey, Kamara, I think have overall some of the biggest contracts in, and I want to say McCaffrey probably has the biggest. But here's the thing. When you look at this list, so let's look at this list, and I'm going to scroll down here for audience. Bijan Robinson 1, Christian McCaffrey 2 at 12, Alvin Kamara at 11. So for one, we don't know what Bijan's even going to be, and this is the anomaly year for them. This is kind of based on where they got drafted as far as with the cash that they're being paid. So
right,
this is not like this is what it would be going forward. So you do have some anomalies in here. Bijan, Jahmyr Gibbs, those are both players that are going to be paid a lot this year based on where they were drafted. Aaron Jones at 4, 10.9 for him. Nick Chubb is at 5, 10.8. We have Jahmyr Gibbs 6, 10.7 for him. Derrick Henry at 7, 10.5. And say three-headed monster of Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, and Tony Pollard, because they were all franchised. They're at about roughly 10 million. And then it drops down to Fred James Conner at 11 at 8. And we'll just kind of stop there. Actually, let's see here. Let's see if we can go down to Austin Eckler, because he's at 6 too. So now there is going to be, I'm going to make a case to pay Austin Eckler. So you stay tuned in for that, because I'm going to make a case to pay him. But these other guys, David Montgomery is 6'2", Miles Sanders 6'9". Okay, James Conner 8. It's not I mean, when you look at the teams that were successful making deep postseason runs, you look at Nick Chubb. Let's take him for example. Great running back, right? Especially in your fantasy team. This guy's going to set the world on fire here for you. But here's the problem. Never really leads to success for the Cleveland Browns, right? Like the Cleveland Browns were still Cleveland Browns. They got the 5th highest paid running back, and it did not correlate. Yeah. Aaron Jones, 4th highest paid running back, did not correlate, at least last year.
Right.
Alvin Kamara, 3rd highest paid running back, definitely did not correlate last year. So Christian McCaffrey did pretty good last year, so he was amazing for the 49ers.
Yeah,
so.
And he makes the most sense, right? Because he does all those other things. Not only can he run it, but he can also catch the ball. And I don't think you want him being your quarterback, but they really had no choice at the end of the last year's NFC game, so the NFC title game.
Well, let's go here to looking at the receivers. So Austin Eckler, for what Austin Eckler is getting paid, he gets paid less than if he was a receiver, he'd be getting paid less than Cedric Wilson and Russell Gage. Okay? Cedric Wilson, Russell Gage. Now on the screen here, I have the receiver rankings. Now, something peculiar is happening here as we look through our receiver rankings here. We have a guy that's not a receiver as far as receptions that is at number 5 here. So let's look at the top five receivers.